You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Where does aliveness actually come from? Find out more in today's episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer. What if everything we've been told about holistic health, healing, and well-being is only part of the story? Because thriving in today's world looks different than it used to. Here, we challenge the narratives, rethink what it means to become human, and explore how that shapes the way we lead, live, and step into our full potential. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. We dive into holistic health, opening a thoughtful space to reflect on how our well-being touches every aspect of our lives. Through curiosity and compassion, we can honor the wisdom within our bodies and explore what it truly means to thrive on a sustainable path. Dr. Mann is the lead naturopathic doctor and founder of Nova Wellness, a naturopathic medical practice located in the San Francisco Bay Area. Dr. Mann has worked in both conventional and integrative medicine over the past decade, with over 17 years in clinical experience, and she has supported thousands of clients heal from chronic conditions. Nova Wellness was founded out of her passion for integrative medicine and a holistic approach to healing. Dr. Jen specializes in autoimmune conditions, digestive disorders, thyroid dysfunction, and hormonal imbalances. She is known for her holistic, deeply supportive approach that emphasizes living in the rhythm with the body, restoring the gut hormone connection, and weaving in pleasure, purpose, and nourishment as part of the healing journey. Let's meet Dr. Mann. Hi, Dr. Jen. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because we'll be talking about our health and a sustainable path that we can take for our health. And of course, I feel today, especially in this world and what's happening, our health is a huge topic. Our health, our happiness, all of those things that come together and making space for holistic healing, of course. So thank you for being here today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Petra. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that you're bringing a very unique perspective and insight and wisdom to this topic that I so look forward to sharing today. And for starters, would you like to share maybe a little bit about yourself and your journey and your story, the pieces of it that you feel relate to what you do today, and also share with our listeners a little bit about what you do today?
Yeah, so I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm based in San Francisco, and really, I love this work. I love seeing people heal and transform. And like you were saying, I think that health is the foundation that really helps us create the life that's most full, that's most fulfilling, that allows us to serve our purpose on this planet. So the more we can generate that in ourselves, the more we can become in our lives. I got into this work. I have the classic wounded healer journey. Really, my work deepened because of my own healing. And that started very young for me. I started getting sick when I was around 12. And I developed depression and fatigue when I started junior high. And it didn't let up. It just kept going. And like most women, it was diagnosed as depression or stress and was put on antidepressants. And I went to therapy. And I really thought that's what it was. So I just kept pushed through high school, was high achieving, ended up in a career, pushing there. But it was a real struggle. It was surviving life by taking mini naps whenever I could. I remember falling asleep in the back of a concert hall in my early 20s, just trying to get through. And I did the things that conventional medicine told me to do. I just took the antidepressants. I had a turning point in my early 20s where I went to the Amazon. And when I was there, I drank water that was contaminated and I came back very, very sick, digestive issues, eczema all over my body. The depression I'd had worsened. I started having panic attacks and I was just a shell of a person, really. but still pushing through because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. Really, my first year of medical school, so I got a calling to go to naturopathic medical school. I just felt like it was something I had to do. I really love helping people. I love science. I love the human body. I love the philosophy of naturopathic medicine. And there, my first year when I was there, I got diagnosed finally with something more tangible to actually work with, which was Hashimoto's, an autoimmune thyroid condition. And in a way, this was a relief because now I had a diagnosis to work with. I had something. Oh, I wasn't just making this up. It wasn't just about pushing more. It wasn't about overcoming all the time. It was like, oh, there's actually something real going on with my body, something that I can actually work with. And even though at the time people told me this is something you can't heal or can't change or it's a chronic condition, I knew differently. That's really what's propelled me always in myself and in my work is this deep knowing that you don't have to settle for feeling terrible. It's not just a matter of pushing through. It's really the body wants to come into balance. Your body wants to be as highly functioning, as on purpose as possible. And if you can find more alignment, you'll find more aliveness. You'll find more of that purpose and life force energy in your life. And truly, we are meant to be healthy.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that because I feel that is sort of the key, that little gold nugget to even this conversation is that our body is innately very wise and will communicate and send signals. It's just that we're not always trained to understand what those signals mean or are. So especially if you know, like yourself, that something's just not right in the body. I know a lot of women, especially their labs come back clean. There's sometimes a very obvious answer to things, and yet you can clearly tell something is not right in your body. I love the fact that you're listening in and you're looking at labs, the whole picture to help people really understand what is happening. Now, if we go back, because you mentioned you already felt challenges in your younger years and had mental health challenges as well, is this something common that you see in your practice? Is that maybe we don't look enough at some of our earlier years to see how that connects as we're experiencing physical, mental, emotional challenges as adults?
Yeah, this is something we do with every client is do a thorough history. And I'll have people go all the way back. Where were you born? What were the circumstances of your birth? What were the circumstances of your childhood? What were any turning points where you started feeling different, where you started noticing things? When did those digestive issues first start? When did you first having panic attacks or depression or low mood? Major stressors in your life, just really going through and seeing any turning points. And they all give clues. And humans are wonderfully complicated. We have our physical bodies, our mental bodies, our spiritual bodies, and things happen in all these different aspects of who we are. And they all give us clues as to where to go with our healing.
Is this usually something that I want to say shows up in some kind of test? Or are you also running into these experiences where everything looks normal? The values for all the lab tests are okay, and yet the person is just feeling off. And I don't know how long it took for you to receive the Hashimoto's diagnosis eventually and finally, but there can be many years in between where people are struggling and they're just not getting answers. So where do you start in these cases where people clearly know something's not working for them? They might be really tired or they might have pain or digestive issues. Something is not right. And there's not really anything to go off primarily. So where do you start with, I want to say, this investigation, playing a little bit of detective, of figuring out where this might be coming from?
Yeah. So, as a naturopathic doctor, when we're working with someone and we're doing, of course, the thorough history and tapping into that, you knowing that something is off and trusting that and believing you and partnering with you in that, the next step is typically to get some labs. And nearly all my clients have gone to a conventional doctor and gotten labs done prior, and often told, like you were saying, unless there's something so obvious that their labs are quote unquote normal. And that's because in conventional medicine, when they're looking at your labs, they're looking at ranges that are for people that are in the hospital or ill enough that they can diagnose a specific illness. So you have to reach such a level of illness on conventional labs to have them called abnormal that people are typically so sick by that point. But like we're talking about, you get many clues sooner that something is off way before it's going to show up as severe illness on your labs. As a naturopathic doctor, though, I get to order your labs, and I'm looking at your labs not just for a specific medical diagnosis, but I'm looking for where are things suboptimal. In the ranges, like I was saying again, the labs are really for hospitals, which is a very severe level of illness. But I can look at your labs, or a trained functional or naturopathic doctor can look at your labs and be like, hey, yes, it's in normal range. For example, the thyroid, there's a very broad range, but I want to see those numbers in a very specific range because that's where people actually feel good. To go beyond just what's quote unquote actually abnormal in the labs, but to zone in and where do people actually feel good when they're looking at their labs. That's a whole different way of looking at lab analysis. That's one piece. The second piece is that we order labs that are outside of what your conventional doctor orders. For me, for many of my clients, we have gut issues. Gut is a huge part of that contributes to many of these illnesses, especially autoimmune or thyroid conditions. We can do testing that goes beyond what you have had done, even if you've had a stool test with your regular doctor. These are functional tests that look beyond, that are again looking for full function of your body, which is what we want. We want full functionality, full health expressed. So that deeper look, that more nuanced look at labs, ordering labs outside of the system, you can start to get way more clues, and you're going to feel so validated by that. All of a sudden, the things start to make sense.
I can absolutely see that. And even just that feeling of somebody believing what you're expressing, right? Because that's often a challenge, is that it just gets stamped off as, well, you're just really stressed, or you just had a baby, or just this happened. It's normal for you to feel this way. Getting stamped off like that. And then coming to someone, that person actually saying, yes, I can see how maybe you're not functioning optimally here, right? It's such a huge, I think, healing piece just in itself, getting that validation. So yeah, I love that you are taking the time to investigate all of these pieces and helping people make sense of what's actually going on in their bodies. Now, you mentioned the gut, and I have a feeling that the gut is probably part of a lot of the patterns that you see in your practice. So share with us how the gut connects to maybe a lot of the things that you see in your practice. You mentioned autoimmune. So what are some of these larger patterns that you see a lot of, and how does the gut tie into that?
Part of the philosophy of the medicine is to look for the root cause of what's going on, and also to look at people holistically. A lot of my work focuses on thyroid. People may come in knowing that they have a thyroid issue, and maybe they're taking medication, for example, their doctor for thyroid, but they're still feeling off. They still have brain fog or fatigue or mood issues or digestive issues, skin rashes, the whole host of things that go on when we're not feeling well. So the labs start to give us clues as to where to look. The history does too. And when I'm looking at that and putting the pieces together with someone, what created this to begin with? Or what else is off in the body that's creating symptoms even when things are quote unquote managed with like a medication? Next to food, which I think is one of the most important pillars, gut is probably the next most important pillar. If you think about the gut in your body, it takes up an enormous amount of space. It's a huge part of our body. 80% of our immune system lives in the gut. You have more of your nervous system in the gut than you have in your brain. It's responsible for breaking down your food, for absorbing nutrients, for eliminating the toxins that you collect in your body. It has enormous responsibility. It's often ignored. Many people's symptoms are called just IBS, when the gut is connected to such important things like your immune system, your nutrient status, your detoxification. That affects your hormones. This affects your mood. It's connected to every system in your body. I spend a tremendous amount of time with people on helping them heal their gut.
So when you share that, it sounds possible to actually heal your gut, which is, I think, a really hopeful and empowering insight, is that since it is connected to so many pieces around our mental health, our physical health, that there are ways, of course, that you can help and support people in bringing their gut back to a more optimal state and helping them function better that way. You touched on a few of the things that this could be connected to, the immune system, even our skin, maybe things that we don't think about as related to the gut. And of course, you also mentioned mood. So is there a connection for people to also look, I want to say, at their whole state of being, since we are looking at this holistically, right? So beyond some of the physical things that might be happening in their bodies, to look at their mental states, their emotional states, and maybe they're having some very challenging life experiences and divorce or a change in jobs or anything like that. How do you tie in to the additional layers of the gut that are not physical into a person's healing journey?
We want to look at you as a whole person. What's happening in your life is affecting your body. What's happening in your body is affecting your life. So for me, for example, with the depression, I went to therapy and I worked on many things, and that helped to some extent. Once I started treating the thyroid and treating things holistically, all of a sudden the therapy started working. I didn't have the juice, I didn't have the physicality to carry the changes I was learning in therapy. Likewise, if you could be working on your body and exercising and eating the right things, but if there's circumstances going on in your life, like maybe your marriage is really difficult and it's creating a lot of stress, and that's creating a lot of cortisol in your body or straining your thyroid, it's really important that we start to focus on how you need to get support in your relationship. Maybe that's learning how to communicate better. And the thyroid is right in your voice box, it's right there. This is part of exercising that part of your body more. It might be speaking up, learning how to set boundaries, learning how to create better relationship. We have to work with all the pieces in our life. We can't separate out our physical, mental, spiritual bodies. And the more you can integrate this in and really have a holistic perspective and a whole being sort of awakening into more of your aliveness, that's where I'm always looking with people. Where can we bring things to activate more, become more alive, become more healthy across the board? We start to see everything start to up level, and it's like people become something different. Their relationships start working, or maybe they change job, and then their physicality starts to get better. So there's this positive feed forward loop that starts to happen when we look at all of us.
That makes a lot of sense. I get the feeling that we have feedback loops, right, that kind of reinforce. So when we are suffering mentally, that also feeds back into just not feeling well physically. And as you mentioned, the reverse, right, when we are starting to improve, signals through all of the different layers that we are actually more joyful or more happy or more aligned with our lives. So yeah, I feel that these feedback loops, we can benefit from them if we can positively influence them, or they will start reinforcing the challenges that we are experiencing. So certainly looking at it from a holistic perspective, I feel that there's a different level of healing that can take place, rather than if we look at just a physical body and say, okay, well, you have knee pain, here are some pills, or you have gut issues, just eat some yogurt. Looking at this very holistically, I feel there's a whole different level of health and healing that becomes possible for people. I want to maybe take this to a bit of a practical level, because you, of course, are working with people every single day. Have you heard people telling you, well, I don't really have time to cook, so I can't really eat healthy food, or I can't afford to do this, or I'm working all the time, or I'm a single mom. How do you expect me to make these changes or actually do this in a life that's really busy? So how do we sustain this kind of holistic health in a life that's very often dictated by time constraints with work or family, by financial constraints? So how do you bring this all into people's lives?
Yeah, so one of the first pieces after doing a history and doing labs with people, the next step is setting what we call the essentials. And these are the foundations that create deeper health in your life. So your food intake, working with your circadian rhythm, getting in things like exercise and proper sleep. There's working on starting to detoxify the body, and working on our stress. And these are the pillars that create that foundation. And then from there, we can work deeper on things like hormones and gut and those pieces. as we go through and help you figure out what to eat and implement important pieces around stress management or things like that, everyone's different. Your life, and whether you have kids or a busy job, everyone we work with is busy. I think that's a theme across the board these days. That is part of our society these days. That's part of being human. I expect that with people. And part of what I really want people to know is like, you don't have to be perfect to heal. You don't have to be Instagram, the whole thing on there. That's just not reality. When we go through the process of kind of the essentials with people in the beginning, is I want people walking away with 2 or 3 things that move the needle like 80%. So once you start to get in there and you start to see like, oh, for me, these are the pieces that really move the needle in my own life. For me, food and sleep, if I get those 2 things right, that takes me 80% of the way. I know that, and I can prioritize that. With someone else, it might be avoiding alcohol and avoiding refined sugar. And then they prioritize that. If they can do the other parts, exercise, sleep, those other things, great. But each person, if you can walk away with like the 2 or 3 things that's going to take you 80% of the way, then you know what to focus on and what to prioritize. So we want to make this like really practical, recipes that are easy, repeatable. And we do have a lot of convenience things now that you can leverage. Getting groceries delivered. Lots of our clients don't cook. So there are ways, and to work with someone and to let go of that idea that I have to do everything perfectly, that it has to be Instagram worthy, but really to work with someone that's going to help you make this practical and to be able to prioritize.
I love that idea of picking the few things that get you 80% there, because I think that actually makes it so we can pick, if we only have a little bit of time during the day, we can pick sort of that most impactful thing in the little time that we do have. So I love that idea. And I agree. I think very often sleep is sort of the thing. If I can prioritize that, there's a big ripple effect that goes into everything else. So I can see how that works. And I definitely would encourage our listeners maybe to kind of start listening into their bodies and paying attention to what are the things where they notice an impact. For example, if for some people it's movement, or for some people it's clean diet or sleep, that they're starting to actually notice what their body is communicating when they are doing those things, and they're getting an impact from that. So thank you for sharing that. I feel that's one of those amazing things that we can take away from this episode and start trying that out in our lives. I'm wondering a little bit, as we were talking about listening to the body or listening in and kind of starting to understand what it's communicating, a lot of people get really scared when things come up, right? Because if we're not feeling well, the first reaction is usually like, oh my God, there's something really wrong. Or do I have a tumor? Do I have cancer? What will this mean, right? We tend to go to these extreme places when we're feeling the fear of something coming up. So I want to talk a little bit about, how do you work with that relationship with the body? I kind of feel that just because we have symptoms, it's not always a bad thing and doesn't always have to lead to bad things. How do you work with patients and clients on that trust piece, for their body, of listening in and maybe not having that fear come in every time that they are experiencing a sensation in their body that might be telling them something?
Many people who have been dealing with symptoms for a long time start to feel like their body is an enemy, or that these signals mean disaster. One of the most important reframes we want to do is to learn how to start to listen to your body and start to trust the signals that it's giving you. That these signals that it's giving you is trying to lead you in the right direction. Oh, another simple tool to start using is what we call a body scan. And this is where you sit with your body and you just scan it for physical sensation. So you say, okay, for these 2 minutes, I'm going to try to let go of assessing, judging, diagnosing, Googling, AIing my symptoms. I'm just going to sit with my body, scan it from toes, going all the way up the legs, the abdomen, the chest, into the head, down the arms, and scanning for sensation, maybe tingling or pulsing, or a sense of cool or warm or tension or relaxation, just feeling the body for sensation without naming. Because we want to start befriending the body again. We want to start seeing these signals as things that are pointing us in the direction of communication. This is how your body communicates with you, is through signals. If you weren't getting signals, you wouldn't be able to survive. How do we start to befriend these signals as messages that are turning us towards what's deeply going on with us and how we can address them? And once you start, one of the first things we do with our clients is what we call an elimination diet, where we take out certain foods to figure out if you have food intolerances. And the big reason we do that is because, one, we want you to know if you have foods that you're eating that are not right for your body. But this is a way to start to communicate with your body like, oh, thank you for telling me that you don't like dairy. Thank you for telling me that gluten makes you really sick. And to start to befriend these signals instead of dismissing them, overriding them, or thinking that they mean disaster.
Yeah, that's a really important point, and hopefully another thing that our listeners take away is as they're kind of starting to work with their bodies, listening in more, to get comfortable, to start trusting some of those signals a little bit more, listening in, finding out maybe where that points them for constantly feeling ill after eating pasta, maybe to tune into that pattern and become more aware of what the body is saying. So yeah, I love that. And the thing to me is that I feel the more we actually do trust our body, there's a certain sense, I think also maybe a trust or an empowerment in our own ability to actually heal or figure things out, which I have a sense might be an important piece in this as well, because if we are of the opinion that this can't be healed anyways, or this is just how it is, or we just have to suffer through this, it might make things a lot more challenging than they actually need to be. So I feel you're giving people a very empowering piece on their path as well to their own healing journey through this.
Yeah, I want to share this is very revolutionary. This is very countercultural, where our culture is one of take the ibuprofen to cover up the pain, take this medication to numb things out, and defer to doctors and authority to tell us what's going on. So to take that authority back, to be like, hey, I'm actually going to listen to this, what I'm labeling as discomfort. Maybe it has some information for me. And then that next level of, oh, it does have information for me. And oh, I can change the situation. I can connect in. That builds such deep confidence and such a level of empowerment. I think my favorite thing about practicing medicine is seeing that come alive in people. I had a client recently, he'd had thyroid issues for 30, 40 years with antibody levels very, very high in the thousands, and was kind of like, maybe this is just the way it is. And we did an elimination diet, ended up testing his antibodies a few months later, and they had gone down into the hundreds from the thousands within a matter of a few months. So something that felt so stuck for so many years, to be able to do things like figure out your food intolerances and take out the things that are agitating you and start to feel better and start to see things change. And then you have this feed forward cycle of like, oh, there is something I can do here other than numbing or overriding. Very different.
Yeah, I feel this is an empowering piece and something that Western medicine certainly has its place, and we work with doctors and we get care that we need. And there is also a side to complementing all of that, right? Of supporting in addition to all of that, what we are experiencing and the things that we are going through. So I feel that this is a piece that we really can all tap into, and we can maybe work a little bit on that awareness, which seems to be the first part of where all of this comes together. So yeah, thank you for sharing that and giving our listeners, I want to see that little empowering nudge to listen in, and start kind of thinking, what is my body trying to tell me, or what is my awareness trying to bring up here? So yeah, and that confidence certainly I would think goes a long way. I mean, I believe there are also studies on the mindset of people believing they can heal or they can't heal and how that impacts outcomes and things like that. So I do feel we're talking about a lot more than just, oh, this would be nice. We're talking about real impact on our health when we have the confidence to believe that we can heal. So it makes a huge difference, I feel, in our lives all around.
Yes. And to start to build those tools and that confidence. And yeah, you start, like I was saying, you start to see things come alive in people, and that sense of knowing and that level of security that it creates within us. to know that we know ourselves, that we're empowered to change, that we have agency over our lives.
Yeah. And I feel especially in times like that, uncertainty can drive a lot of things. So having that connection with our bodies, I feel is a really important part of feeling safe and centered in who we are and who we are in this world. So yeah, thank you for all of that. I feel like this has been great insight. And if our listeners are really curious now and they would like to work with you or they would like to start digging into some of the things they're experiencing in their own lives, how can our listeners connect with you? And what kind of programs, services, or workshops or anything do you offer for your clients who'd like to work on some of the challenges in their lives?
Yeah, so the best place to visit us is on our website. And when you go there, there's a few options. We have a thyroid workshop coming up mid-September. It's online. And if you're dealing with a thyroid issue, you think you might have one, that's a great place to start. And we'll go through some of these pieces together, go through labs, teach you more about a holistic way to feel better. And if you're in California, you could schedule a discovery call with us. We work with people through health programs. So we work with people over a period of time where we can really go through the root causes, proper assessment, all these tools to help you feel better, come out the other side, feeling more empowered, more confident, feeling yourself and healing these health issues.
Amazing. And we, of course, will link to all of those resources in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there on how you can connect with Dr. Jen. And if you're interested in the workshop, I feel like our thyroid is kind of connected to a lot of things too. So even to get a bit more knowledge about that, I think could benefit people hugely to have more insight and how all of that is connected. So yeah, you will find all of that in the show notes. And thank you, Dr. Jen, for being here today and for sharing your wisdom on, I want to say, this holistic approach to how we can thrive better in our lives. And thank you for sharing that today. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Petra.
Yeah, absolutely. This is information that we need to get out there so more people can access it and more people can start applying this to their own lives. I feel this will go a very long way in how we feel internally, externally, how we are situated in life, how we thrive. So yeah, thanks for being part of that and the amazing work that you do. And thanks everybody for tuning in today. It has been a pleasure and we hope to hear you again in one of our next episodes. Until then, take care of yourselves and be well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.